Great. Thank you very much for joining me today on my Global Leaders with Lisa podcast. And I'm very grateful because I have today an amazing speaker. Anyone who watching us, it's all about AI. So we have an incredible AI expert. And the topic is how great leaders scale AI without losing control. And my guest is Dan Leiva. Dan, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Really looking forward because I'm sure there's so many people, so many companies, so many leaders that will really benefit from this topic and this podcast with you. But first, a short introduction about Dan. Dan is really inspiring person. He is an executive who spent around 25 years leading a product engineering operations team in the most really huge companies, American companies like Apple, eBay, Travelers, and he helped organization. He managed around 1000 people and also built AI platforms serving tens of millions of customers worldwide. So this is really amazing. At the moment, he's the founder of CX Amplify, executive of the CEO of Veterans United, and also he launched an incredible book. He's a best-selling author of the book called Amplified. The book is actually a playbook for scaling human potential in an AI world. So this is really amazing. Welcome, Dan, here, and looking forward to have this amazing conversation with you today.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So maybe first questions because 25 years in leadership law, managing 1,000 people. You work for Apple, you work for Travelers, eBay. Looking back over your career, what leadership lessons shaped the way you think about innovation and organization excellence?
Yeah, I'll take three companies and three examples of three different things about innovation and operational excellence, and none of them about technology. Even though I'll use three companies: Apple, Intuit, and eBay. And Apple taught me that design isn't about how something looks; it's really about how it makes you feel. And you think about what Apple does, and you think about what they do in the world is they take so much care and about how the thing works and how it's going to make you feel and what it's going to do in your life, and the care that they take about the design and the functionality of it and what it's going to do. And think about let's use the iPad as an example. There were tablet PCs before the iPad. Microsoft had them for years. I used to use the Microsoft tablet PC before I worked at Apple. But everyone thinks about the iPad as the ultimate tablet and the way it makes you feel when you use it and the things it unlocks for you to be able to do. And the things that they think about, and think about like the Apple Watch is a good example. They thought about making it feel like it's tapping you on the side of the wrist the way you should turn when you're doing directions. So it's just the thought process and the detail that goes on to it is what should you feel when you're using the product? How should you feel about the experience? So that's what Apple taught me. Intuit taught me about the discipline of watching real customers struggle instead of asking them what they wanted. Because you can ask a customer what they want, but they always can't articulate exactly what they want. Intuit has a process of what they call follow me home. You actually go watch a customer do what they do, either in their home or in their place of business. As a product manager, that's what you do. You actually watch real customers do what they do. And you can actually watch them see where the process breaks down. Because Intuit's goal is you want to create a product that's so great that they can't imagine going back to doing it the old way. Whether it's when they originally created Quicken to manage their finances or QuickBooks for small business finance, TurboTax, or any of their other products, they think about it in doing it so great, I never go back. And you do that by watching people struggle. Because I can ask you what you want to do, or I can watch you do it and say, no, that's where they're struggling. I'm watching you. I'm seeing where you pause on the screen. I'm seeing where I hear that sigh when it's frustrating for you to do it. And I only see that by watching you. So watching them break down that process. eBay taught me it's about trust, not just delight, but trust is where you really need to focus. If you think about what eBay is at its very core is it's two strangers exchanging things. I'm going to send another stranger money so they can send me a thing. We've never met. I have to trust that when I send them that money, they're going to send me the thing I saw online. And so what you have to make sure is, that's the whole business model. You have to make sure that every system we build, every word on every screen has to make it feel safer for one stranger to touch another stranger. And so when you put those three things together, they become an operating discipline. Empathy before architecture. What do you want to make sure that the customer is going to feel when you build that? Right. Subtracted delight. How do I make it simpler? How do I make it easier? If you think about TurboTax as a product, 130 plus million people file their taxes in the US with TurboTax every year. How do I make the US tax code, which is not simple, how do you make that simple for Americans to navigate? Right? And how do you make the implicit parts explicit? How do you make it so simple that I can just trust the experience? Right. Every organizational problem I've solved since then traces back to one of those three things. And how do you, if you skip those, that's going to be a challenge. So that's how I think about it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So it's great. Thank you for your sharing your experiences with all these companies, because I'm sure there are people who maybe have an idea to launch a product or launch the company. So it's important that you learn so much about the design, how make it feel as using a product, and also the trust that you're building when you exchange something for the transaction, as you're saying in the eBay, and the trust that you're building with your customers. Brilliant. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. In terms of AI now, the questions about AI misconception, because there are so many misconceptions. People are talking about AI, they're worrying. Some organizations have challenges with AI. So many organizations rush into AI implementation. What do you believe is the biggest misconception executives have when introducing AI into the business?
I think one of the biggest challenges is executives and many leaders think it's a technology decision. It's not. It's an organizational design decision that involves technology. It shows up as a starting question. Many of the starting questions go from, where can we cut costs with AI? It's the wrong starting point. The proper starting point, cost reduction, is what happens after you've redesigned the process and the operating model around what the technology makes possible. If cost is the first question, you're optimizing around the process that nobody redesigned, and you get short-term savings with long-term impact. It's what I call the efficiency trap in my book. I've always talked about it as, if you don't understand the business and don't understand the business problems, all you're doing is picking a technology and finding the problem. You have to understand the process, redesign the process first, understanding where the decisions are being made, and apply a decision model, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but apply the right decision model, understand where you're going to let AI make that decision. If you don't do those things, all you get is technology making faster decisions and breaking it. Right. So you have to think about those things. And when you think about a technology problem, that's going to break it. You have to think about organizational design, because all you're going to get is faster problems if you haven't done it the right way.
Exactly, exactly. So AI deployment, as you said, is not an organizational design problem. Is an organizational design problem, not a technology problem.
Correct.
Yeah, great, perfect. And also, you introduced the concept of the velocity of zero. Could you explain what is it and why so many organizations unknowingly fall into the trap?
Yeah. Velocity of zero, I think, is what happens when an organization is moving fast on every metric is easy to measure: cost, speed, automation, coverage. But you're not really actually improving. You may be causing harm in trust, in judgment. Right. The story I opened the book with, it's a composite, because what I was really careful with as I wrote the book was, I don't want to, right, having worked at some of those organizations, not disclosing anything that I was going to get in trouble for, is a composite, right? It's open up with an executive named Sarah. She's looking at a board deck where costs are down 22%, handle time down 35%, automation coverage 87%. That's pretty close to an actual real example. Same time, customers complaining about the AI system going viral, 14,000 reactions in an hour. Dashboard said everything's working, but our customers were saying everything is broken. Both are telling the truth because those metrics were saying exactly what the system was designed to do: make things faster, cut down the speed, make the internal processes go faster, right? But what nobody was looking at is what was the real problem that was being solved. And the actual thing that this comes from was the process was designed so that AI was making the decision, but no one looked at the end-to-end experience. And what was happening was nobody looked at forcing the customer through an AI experience wasn't what the customers wanted, was breaking that trust. The customer wanted to talk to somebody. The customer needed to talk to somebody. So you lost that trust up front. Sure, the customer got through everything faster, but you lost that trust up front, right? Organizations fall into that trap because the operational metrics and those outcome metrics diverge, right? Everyone looks at, once again, those cost metrics, those operational metrics, right? Nobody knows the gap is opening because everyone's looking at the number that's improving. By the time the gap's visible, it's usually visible to the customer first and leadership last.
Yeah,
That's the velocity of zero.
Yeah, great point. That's amazing. And AI becomes more autonomous. How can leaders ensure accountability doesn't disappear?
Yeah, I think accountability, uh, it doesn't disappear. AI becomes more autonomous. And organizations kind of let it diffuse. You have to be able to name the owner of decisions. If you can't name the owner of decision in 60 seconds, ownership isn't real. A lot of organizations say they have humans in the loop. Right? In reality, those humans don't have real authority. They're there to approve or monitor, not truly decide. It's not accountability. It's a rubber stamp with a human name attached to it. Before scaling AI, I'd really want 3 governance structures in place. Accountability architecture. You want a named owner, not a committee, but a named person for every decision AI touches. Second thing is what I call a red button protocol. What is a protection mechanism for a human interruption for every decision? It's got to be built on 4 properties. One is the authority. Somebody can actually pause that AI. Somebody close to the decision can say, this is wrong. I need to stop it until we can correct it. It needs to have immediacy, meaning pausing it actually stops it right now, not next sprint when we get around to it, but stops it right now. It needs to have traceability, right? So every time it's used, it's logged with a reason and outcome. And protection. And protection is one of the most important parts of that red button, because if I press that red button and stop the process that I see causing harm, but every time I stop it, my manager goes, why'd you stop it? Why'd you stop it? I'm not going to press the button. Whether I'm right or not in pressing the button, I'm not going to press the button. So you have to have that protection. And so the other thing you need to have is, alongside those operational metrics, and this is where the velocity of zero comes in, alongside those operational metrics, you need to have what I call key human indicators alongside those operational metrics. So to make sure that you're watching those human outcomes with the same rigor that you have the operational outcomes. So how many times are people catching those escalations? How many times are people stopping the process? And so are you watching is those empathy type metrics, those human metrics alongside your operational metrics? And those are the things that you need to have in place to have that accountability to make sure it doesn't disappear.
This is a great point. Perfect. I'm sure everybody will benefit from this knowledge. What about human leadership, artificial intelligence? So now many people actually are afraid of AI. We're talking about that, replacing leaders, replacing the job. So which leadership qualities do you believe will become even more valuable in the next decade?
Yeah, I think that, fear of losing jobs, and we talked a little bit about this, fear of losing jobs is real. But I think from a leader level, the fear that AI replaces leaders kind of misreads what leadership really is. AI can execute, it can recommend well. What it can't do is own an outcome. It can't hold context against competing priorities or make a judgment call when data is incomplete and stakes are high. So that's what a leader really does. And that work becomes more valuable, not less valuable, in the AI era. So the qualities I bet on for the next decade: Judgment under ambiguity, right? That's something that's a human, right? Discipline to name ownership instead of letting it diffuse. Empathy that's actually listened to rather than assumed. And the curiosity to keep learning how the work itself is changing instead of managing yesterday's process. One of the big things, and I take this from my Apple days, intellectual curiosity. I love to learn, right? Especially in today's world, AI changing faster than ever, right? Every day there's a new model or a new tool or a new something. If you're not learning every day, especially as a leader, you're going to fall behind. And so that's going to be keep learning how the work is changing, keep learning how the tools are changing, and keep learning how to change along with it. And so, judgment, discipline to name ownership, especially empathy, and keep learning.
Great. So
this is what I call the shift from manager to architect, right? Not directing people through things, designing the structure, designing the boundaries and the guardrails so that AI can work together with people.
yeah, brilliant. So this resolves this answers lots of worries and doubts. And now you're also a great author. You just launched an amazing book, The Amplify, where you're a best-selling author. And your book actually introduced this Amplify leadership framework. Can you talk a little bit about that, about the principles, and explain how leaders can begin applying them immediately?
Definitely. Yeah. When I went to write the book, one of the things that I thought about is I had read a lot of leadership books during my career. And one of the challenges for me is like you read a book and it's great and there's lots of stuff. And then you're like, okay, now what do I do with it? And so there were two things that I approached differently when I wrote the book. One was I wanted to be a book that was something that people could take away and do something with. And so the reason it's called, the operator's guide and the handbook is the templates are in there. The guides are in there. The 90-day, here's what you go do. The book is built so that you can actually take it and go do with it. This isn't a, hey, here's what I need to do. Then I need to go hire Dan to come in and run this for 6 months. No, the book is there so people can take it and go implement in their company. And the other thing for me was the book is not written from a place of perfection. The book is written with all the mistakes I made over my 25 plus years, right, in my career, so that hopefully people don't make them, right? I launched my first chatbot in 2006, right? So while generative AI is new, AI itself is not new. And so how do I think about applying the things I learned in a very structured way, right? I'm a very process-focused person. So how do I think? And so I built that framework to be, how do I think about the disciplines? And so Amplify is 7 disciplines are meant to be in sequence and not cherry picked. And so the first one in Amplify is assess. Know where your operating model stands today. What's automated, what's human, where the gaps in ownership already exist before you add more technology on top. Once again, understand what you have before you throw more technology and make it go faster and things like that. So that's assess. The second one is measure. Track those outcomes, not just activity. If you're only measuring cost and speed, you're going to measure that. You're going to put that efficiency trap right in place. So assess where you are, then you measure. Third one, prioritize agency. As I talked about, protect that human's ability to make a decision. I use a 3-class model. Class 1 decisions are where they're kind of simple and the AI can make the decision. It's a routine thing. Think about like, UPS or FedEx or DHL is a good example. They have a route. How I route a package is pretty simple. There's an optimal way to do that. I don't need a human in that. The AI can make the decision. Class 2 is the AI can make a recommendation, but a human should decide. I have a return policy that returns in 30 days. It's day 32, right? AI can recommend, but is this a good enough customer? I should go outside of the policy. Class 3, AI can inform, but a human should decide, especially in things like regulated industry, right? Should I restrict this customer's account? Should I cancel this customer's account? There's some like monetary or some legal impact to doing something. AI can put all the stuff together, but a human really has to do that. And so prioritizing agency is all about what decision should AI make and what decision should a human be involved in. So that's the P, prioritizing agency. The L, listen with empathy. I talked a lot about, right, that human versus AI, Build those mechanisms that surface what customers and employees are actually experiencing, not just what the system reports back, right? Those key human indicators, both operational and human. I integrate that technology. Now you've done all those things. Bring AI in as a tool inside that redesigned operating model, not as a bolt on the old one. You redesign the operating model, you put all those things in place. Now it's time to integrate the technology. The F, foster curiosity. Keep your people learning how the work is changing. This is your defense around what I call a de-skilling trap. Because the problem is, if you put AI in and AI is doing all these things, and I wrote a LinkedIn post about this a couple weeks ago, if you take the humans out of it, they forget how the process works. And if the AI breaks, it's like no one remembers how to do the thing that the AI was doing before, because it's like, no, the AI has been doing this. I don't remember how to do that. And so you don't want judgment to atrophy because AI has been doing the thinking. You want to make sure that the people are there. So make sure the people are still questioning and make sure the curiosity is there. The why, yielding leadership. This is that going from that manager to architect, right? Distributing the real decision-making authority to the people closest to the work, making sure the people have that right to pause the machine instead of concentrating at the top and calling that control. For me, it's like, I want to make sure the team can operate whether I'm in the office or not. I shouldn't have to be that bottleneck that's like, okay, I went away on vacation for a week or 2 weeks and I'm in, hanging out in Europe somewhere and nothing gets done because I'm not in the office. No, I want it to be like everything gets done just same as if I was there or not. And for me, that's one marks of a great leader is if the office operates just as well when you're there as when you're not there, you put the right systems in place. And so yield leadership is the why. So for me, a leader can start applying it today. Pick a process, run it through assess and measure honestly, and name one decision where agency has quietly disappeared. What have you automated that people are no longer looking at? And how do you fix that?
Okay, perfect, great. So it's a really a pure guidance, and you can use your book and step by step put it into action. Yeah, that's amazing. Perfect. What about customer experience in the AI world, Dan? So you've spent decades building products used by millions. How can organization improve customer experience with AI while maintaining empathy and human connection?
Every product or experience I've built at scale, whether it's Apple, Intuit, eBay, Travelers, taught me the same thing. Customer experience isn't a feature. It's the output of all the decisions, the ownership, the incentives, and that execution. AI doesn't change that equation. It just raises stakes on getting it right because it's going to happen much faster. And especially as you talk about agentic AI, if you think about AI in the past was automation. When you talk about RPA and all the things that came before, it just automated the workflow that you would design. Agentic AI reasons. Agentic AI thinks about things. Agentic AI does things based on your policies and the data. And so it raises the stakes. The organizations that win on this won't be the ones that automate the most. They'll be the ones that design experiences where technology enhances that human connection instead of replacing it. I use a fairly simple sequence for this. Know me, understand me, guide me, and stand by me. AI is really good at know me and understand me. Understanding the customer, looking at all the data the company has about what the customer is doing, understanding what the customer is trying to do, how they can personalize that experience. Recognizing who someone is and what they need. What organizations get wrong is assuming can handle last two. Guiding someone through something ambiguous or an emotional moment and standing by them when something goes wrong. Those need a human, or a minimum, a human who's reachable and empowered. Because I think in today's world, as more and more things get automated, especially in customer service or customer experience environment, as more and more things get automated, when something goes wrong, I really need that high quality experience when I get to a person. There's also a risk in over-personalization. Hyper-personalization without a clear boundary starts to feel like surveillance, like Big Brother, right? Instead of service. Empathy at scale is really about knowing everything about someone, but knowing enough to be useful. And where do you stop? And I'll use an Apple example. If you've ever been inside an Apple store, you've been inside an Apple store, and you have an iPhone. Of course, I have an iPhone, and you have the Apple app. Apple knows where all the products are inside of an Apple store down to a very great detail. If your Apple app knows, that's why it pops up, hey, welcome to Apple Store, whatever, and pops up all that stuff. Apple has the data, but they would never use it in that way because Apple cares about privacy, right? And internally, Apple has very tight controls around the data. And so if you called Apple, Apple would never go, hey, I saw you were in the store and you looked at the iPhone 17 Pro Max for 5.3 minutes. Why didn't you buy it, right? Because that'd be crazy. Apple would never do that, right? But Apple may say, hey, I see you have a Genius Bar appointment next week and you haven't backed up your phone. Would you like me to walk you through backing up your phone? So that way, if it has to get replaced, we've got all your data, right? So there's the things around personalization and data usage where you can make it a very personal experience and make it very specific about you, but not make it creepy, right? And so you have to think about that boundary and how you use the data you have to make it personalized, but don't make it feel like surveillance.
Great. Perfect. Now, a topic about the teams, scaling to teams. You've led organization with more than 1,000 employees. What separates companies that successfully scale people and innovation from those that struggle today?
Yeah, I've led teams. I've gone from individual contributor to teams of 40 in 40 countries to 1,000 around the world. And I think what separates organizations well and one to struggle, it's not headcount. It's really the clarity of ownership as the organization grows. And there's two ideas in my mind that do most of the work. And the first is the task versus work. A task is really a discrete action, and work is the judgment and context surrounding that action. Understanding why it matters, what to do, and what to do when it doesn't go as planned. Organizations that scale successfully keep growing people's capacity for work, even as they automate the tasks. And so you can automate tasks all day, but you have to have that judgment around the work, right? Organizations that struggle automate those tasks and assume the judgment automates with it. And so if you can separate those tasks from the work and say, okay, we have to say, okay, what are the tasks that people do? When I think about organizational design, and I've done plenty of organizational designs and organizational redesigns in my career, I always think about the work first. What's the work? What's the work that needs to get done? What are the tasks that needs to get done? And how should we organize around it? And anybody who's worked for me can tell you that I care deeply about the people, and I care to make sure that we have the right people doing the right things. And I would always talk about the work first and then make sure we're designing the people in the org around the work. And so that is important, that you understand the work and you understand who's doing what task and who's doing what work around it. The second is sequence ownership. In large organizations, most failures happen in the handoff between functions. In my last role at eBay, I was responsible for 4 discrete functions across all 140 plus markets around the world. And there's a lot of handoff between those functions. The handoffs don't happen inside of any function, but if you don't clearly define where those handoffs happen, you get a series of departments that, sometimes fight against each other, right? And then the end-to-end outcome quietly fails. And I'll use a very specific example. I owned the help experience product engineering and technology operations for globally for eBay. Mm-hmm. And so I always like a little healthy tension between product and engineering, because I believe product owns why we should do something and engineering owns how we should do it, right? Mm-hmm. So product owns what and why, and engineering owns how. And I feel that if you let an engineering-led organization do it, they build really cool stuff, but maybe not what the customer needs. Right? Mm-hmm. And you should never let a product team decide how you're going to solve something. That's what good engineering teams do. And so I like that healthy tension, but you got to have the right handoffs. And that's even more important in today's AI world, because you're blending those boundaries a lot with all the tools that are available today. A product manager can very easily build prototypes and get to the point where it's almost like a deep handoff into the how. And so having those clear boundaries and handoffs and who's responsible for what allows you to scale well, and very clearly defining who's doing what kind of work. And so when someone owns a sequence, who owns that end to end and not just the pieces, that sets the stage for the ability to scale.
Perfect. That's really great. It's really, I like the part with your team that you really everybody knows the tasks, and also the collaboration between engineers and product development team. They're super important because at the end we what customer needs is the most important for the companies and the customer experience. Great, Dan. What about concept about decision boundaries? So, how should leaders determine which decision belong to AI and which should always remain human? I think this is very important topic and almost asked.
Yeah. Yeah. I use those three classes that I started with a little earlier. Class one is that autonomous, high volume, low stakes, easily reversible. That package routing, that maybe call routing, things like that, that if it's wrong, no one's going to feel it, right? If my package delayed by half an hour a day, right? Someone will feel it a little bit, but it's not the end of the world, right? And so AI is very unlikely to get that wrong. AI is going to be much better at it than a human's going to be. The ability for AI to make a decision about routing a package versus me trying to figure out how to route a package, right? AI is going to do a much better job at that, right? And so those are class one, easily reversible. Class two, AI recommends, human decides, appropriate where stakes are meaningful, or there's enough ambiguity in that where judgment matters. But AI can still narrow those options. The example I used earlier of the return outside of the window of the policy. It's AI doesn't have all the information it needs. It has most of the information, but there's some human judgment that still needs to be applied. AI may get there one day where it can do that empathy and judgment and things like that. AI is not there today. AI is amazing at the analytical piece. It's not there at the judgment. And there may be times where you want that human in the loop or that human to deliver that. If you think about, canceling an account, AI can do that well. But what if it's a widow and her husband recently passed away and she's trying to cancel an account? Yeah, AI can do that. But do you really want AI doing that? Or do you want a human to do that and give her the comfort that it's actually done and that she can rest easy that the company took care of her, right? And so you have to think about where in what case is that decision being made, and what are the things surrounding that moment from that perspective. Class three, human owns, AI informs. Judgments inseparable from accountability, values, or that relation the organization can't afford to damage. High stakes relationship, once again, regulated industry, maybe insurance claim decision, loan processing decision, things like that, where if I make a mistake, either the regulators are going to come down on me or there's something that I can't reverse about this decision. Especially in a regulated industry, I've spent plenty of time, whether it's financial services or other things like that, insurance with travelers, is you have to be able to explain the decision. Especially in an AI world, and especially in agentic AI, when the AI is reasoning, that's so important to have someone who owns that decision. Because when the regulator comes in and asks you, why did the AI make this decision on this case or in this claim or in this instance, you better be able to explain it, right? Otherwise the fines are coming, right?
Yeah,
So those class three decisions, that's very important to understand. Okay. And that's why it goes back to understanding the process, understanding the work, because you need to understand, okay, these processes, these decisions fit in which class. And so the determination is made by what the technology can do, because the technology could probably do all three of those. But those questions, what's the cost of being wrong? How reversible is the outcome? And does this decision carry a relationship or trust component that the system can't repair if it breaks? Leaders that skip the classification end up discovering the boundary after something's broken and it's gone wrong bad. Right?
yeah, right. And especially in this highly regulated industry, as you said, like insurance, financial, it's super important that there is the last decision of the human as well, because he's responsible as well. So great. If you are advising CEO implementing AI across an enterprise today, what would be the first three governance principles you would establish?
Yeah. I think it combine some of the stuff we've talked today. If I were advising them on day one, before a single model goes in production, 3 principles. First is that named ownership. AI needs a human owner, not a committee, not the team, but a single person who's responsible for the outcome. Accountability architecture has to exist before launch, not get retrofitted after an incident. You have to have it before launch. So that's number one. Second is that decision boundary classification we just talked about. It's extremely important to have what decisions fall in what classification. And then third is that red button protocol. You have to have a protected interruption mechanism before launch. There's no safe, authorized log way for a human to pause a system when something looks wrong. You don't actually have oversight. You have appearance of oversight. If you don't have those 3 in place, the rest of governance, the monitoring, the auditing, retraining has no real foundation to sit on. You have to have those 3 as the foundation before you put all the other normal auditing things you would put in place for anything else. For me, deploying AI is unlike any other technology deployment we've had in the past. When you think about all the other technology deployments, automation deployments, think before, you had a launch day. The system, a CRM system, a Salesforce system, anything else would deploy today, and you'd have a team that would stay on for a little bit to do some warranty work and other stuff. But then the deployment was pretty much done. When you deploy an AI agent, it's not done. It's never done, right? It's almost like hiring a digital worker because it's reasoning, it's thinking, right? I wouldn't hire a human worker without a job description, without a manager, without a quality system in place to do that. You shouldn't hire an agent without the same kind of thing. So you need those kind of things in place before you start. And that's what I would guide a CEO on.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. In terms of the future workplace, well, how do you envision leadership evolving over the next 5-10 years as AI becomes embedded in nearly every business process?
Yeah, 5 to 10 years, long time. It could be 5 to 10 months these days. 5 to 10 years. I think leadership is really shifting from managing those known processes to architecting the systems where humans and AI operate with clear boundaries. You're no longer just managing humans; you're also managing AI systems, and that's that manager to architect shift I talked about. It's already underway. I think just people haven't really named it yet because AI is in a lot of places. And I think there's a lot of shadow AI going on. People are using AI, whether people know it or not, right? Everyone's got their own personal ChatGPT account. Whether people know it or not, people are using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever, Grok or whatever their personal preference is. Whether their company's giving them access to it or not, they're using it. And so learning how to manage that combination of humans and AI is going to be a big thing for leaders. And I think the organizations that do this well, they will treat that knowledge currency as seriously as they treat their financial capital. So the ongoing investment in keeping that human judgment sharp, even as AI takes on more of that task level stuff, keeping that human judgment, that empathy, that's going to be the important for the future and the future of work and the future workplace. Because the ones that won't, they'll find out that, and I think you've seen some of this. What you've seen is some companies starting to hire back. I think Klarna was like the first big one that you saw this at. Klarna came out early on and like, we're getting rid of all of our people. We're getting rid of Salesforce. We're getting rid of all of our systems. And then they came back and said, oh, we're hiring our people back, right? Because they bought into the hype. And you're seeing some other companies do that as well. And you're seeing some other companies that take different approaches. And so I think the future workplace is going to be the ones that understand that it's AI and humans together. And there are some companies that realize that and did that differently. IKEA, I think, is an example of the opposite. IKEA said it's going to automate our customer service. We have 8,500 people. What do? And they said, well, we could let them all go, or we have 8,500 experts in IKEA. So what they did was a completely different thing. They took those 8,500 people and said, they are experts in IKEA. They made them interior design advisors. IKEA now has an extra $1.4 billion in revenue every year by just changing what the people did. And so understanding that AI creates opportunities and having AI and humans work together versus it's just a cost advising thing. And so knowledge currency versus just treated just as much as financial capital, I think is important. I think the other piece is understanding information, history, and constraints to be able to make good decisions. AI is going to get more and more embedded in the processors. Make the most of it. Good at building that context. You hear a lot about context engineering. Building that context, not just which tool, but the context around is going to be important.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, I like the way you said we need to really be careful when we're letting people go, because this human potential and this human, customer with the client is pretty not replaceable by AI, as we talked about before, like in sales or in this kind of face-to-face role. It's pretty, at the end, it's always like person to person. But I like how IKEA did that, actually exchange and didn't laid off the people, but take the best skills and use them for the company for other roles. So I think this is also that the leaders should think about it, where to combine the human together with AI. In terms of advice for young leaders, Dan, what advice would you give to the ambitious professionals who want to become exceptional leaders in an AI-driven world?
Yeah. I would say don't chase the tools, chase your judgment. The tools will keep changing every 12 to 18 months or faster. The ability to read a situation, understand what actually matters, and take ownership of an outcome is what compounds over a career. I've learned lots of tools in my days. I love software. I still learn lots of tools. The amount of AI tools I have on my computer and on my phone, and the multiple iPads I have sitting around here, it's learn to understand how to think. Go watch work happen instead of asking people to describe it to you. The Intuit lesson. It's the fastest way to see what actually is broken. Practice subtracting before you add. I am what I call a chronic simplifier. That's the way my bosses have always described me. I like to make things simpler, not harder. Most problems in an organization get solved by removing a step, not adding a new one. Also, that intellectual curiosity I talked about. Be willing to learn. The other one I will talk about is be willing to admit when you made a mistake.
This is really good. Yeah.
Because you're going to make them. I've made plenty in my career, and I've had plenty of opportunities presented to me when I've said I've got it wrong, but I know what I did wrong, and I know I've learned from that mistake.
Perfect. Yeah, it's great advice. Amazing advice. And the final thoughts. If our audience remembers only one lesson from today's conversation, what would you want the message to be?
One thing I can leave you with, the automation didn't fail, the technology didn't fail, the operating model did. If you look at almost every AI failure makes the news, gets described as a technology problem. It rarely is. It's a leadership problem wearing a technology costume. It's not about the best model, the best technology. The ones that do the hard work first, who owns what stays human, building way to pause a system before they need to use it. Those are the ones that are going to succeed.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much. And now tell us, everyone, how people can find you. I know you are working with the clients. You said you're helping clients to implement AI and big organizations. So if anyone would like to purchase your book, your guide about AI, or maybe would like to have one-to-one coaching, how they can find you and where?
Yep, you can find my book on Amazon. You can find me on my website, cxamplify.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing your experience, Dan. It was really amazing, and I hope, and I'm sure that everybody who is watching or rewatch it in the future will really gain, especially leaders in today's world, because the AI is the future now. So your perspective really reminds us that while technology evolves rapidly, leadership, accountability, and the human judgment still remains the foundation of sustainable success. So thank you very much for joining my podcast, and looking forward to your successes. And for anyone who would like to reach out to Dan or organization leaders that are watching, please do. Also, please download and buy his book. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.